Hello, everyone. You are watching the Let's Talk Variety Show. My name is Andy Asher.
My name is Laura Leone, and the official, unofficial end of summer is on Monday, Labor Day. And Labor Day to me is a time to spend with our family and friends and have a barbecue or maybe a get-together.
You know what? I think that what you like to do is what lots of people do because, what would Labor Day be without a barbecue? Labor Day means the last chance really to get away for a quick trip to somewhere, the final blast of summer, you might say. Now, travel prices during Labor Day 2023 can vary depending on various factors such as demand, availability, market conditions. It is difficult to predict with certainty whether travel prices will be up or down this time of year, but during holidays and long weekends, they often see an increase in travel demand.
Hey, 13 million people are going to be flying for the holiday weekend out of LAX. It's going to be the third busiest airport in the country. So what can people expect during this rush?
We can expect, especially at LAX being the third busiest airport over the long weekend, longer lines at security and likely delays on those busiest travel days, Thursday and Friday. So if you haven't booked a trip yet, try to travel on Saturday to avoid the crowds. If you are flying on Thursday or Friday of next weekend, get there early. Give yourself a little extra time and know that there may be disruptions and some delays.
So something else we are hearing about is what's called a micro vacation.
Expert Angel Castellanos. Thank you so much, Angel, for being here. So tell us more about the popularity of these so-called microcations.
Yeah, it's a great way to get out there. And actually, it's if you travel at least 100 miles from home, then that's considered a microcation. And a microvacation is usually around 4 to 5 days. You pick a place, you stay put. Back in the old days, we used to call this the hub and spoke system, where you stayed in one place and took day trips out. And that's exactly what I decided to do here in Punta de Mita. I'm here in Mexico now at the W Hotel. And I chose to come down here because they recently renovated this hotel, and it checks all the boxes for a microcation for sure.
So Andy, I really love micro vacations. Myself, our 5-year-old, and my husband, we love to take like a 1 or 2 day trip just locally to like Truckee, Napa, Monterey Bay, all kinds of stuff because it's quick, but we get like a little mini getaway.
That sounds like a good idea, and that's within about 100 miles, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Really, really easy, kind of easy to jump online, just find something, kind of last minute, almost spur of the moment, like a little more exciting too.
Yeah. Well, that's the description, the definition of a micro vacation within about 100 miles of where you live. Well, the timing of all of this, is perfect because I've discovered one of the most interesting, experienced, and unusual travel experts who is joining the Let's Talk Variety Show. He is Andy Abramson, who at times has traveled almost 300 days out of the year. Now, I talked to Andy a few days ago to learn more about his travel bug, and we are starting out with one of his passions, wine travel, and how it all started.
I got the travel bug, Andy, because I run a global marketing agency called Comunicano. And with clients all over the world, you just had to travel starting in the mid-2000s. It made no sense to simply try and do things by telephone or the early days of video conferencing like we have today. So between conferences and events and client meetings, I started to fly up to 200 days a year and travel as much as 285 days a year one year, which got me named the Business Traveler of the Year by Business Traveler magazine. One thing led to another, but I also have a passion for wine and food and have many friends around the world who are some of the world's best winemakers, which has led to the creation of a second company called Winetoria, which is all about the wine roads less traveled. So travel has really become part of my DNA. I think I bleed red wine as I travel throughout the world, and it's given me a lot of insight. We used to joke around when I was doing the World Technology Roundup, which was a tech podcast from 1998 to 2011, that when I would go on the road, it was grapes, geeks, and you can figure out what the third G was.
It sounds like you started off in business travel, but somewhere or another you must have gotten into more pleasure travel as well.
I think my very first trip to the West Coast back in the 80s was when I was working for the Philadelphia Flyers, and the team president, Jay Snyder, said, Andy, you have to go on vacation. So I went on vacation, first to France, and then a few years later when we were putting together an event called the Celebrity All-Star Hockey Classic. One thing led to another, and I found myself in Santa Barbara and fell in love with the wine, the countryside, the downtown area. And one thing led to another. I said, well, if I like Santa Barbara, I might like another place and another place. And I started to figure out, how can I combine my business travel with my love of wine? And that's how everything got started.
Well, can you give me some ideas on touring the wine country or wine world on a budget? Talk about your response to that.
My response was, you really can't do it, but I can tell you how to do it. So if you think about it, the average cost per day at this point in time to go visit Napa Valley, which is probably the most prominent and famous wine region in North America, is close to $1,000 a day when you factor in hotels, restaurants, car rental, gasoline, even charging up your electric vehicle and everything else. And that's before you start spending money on the reason you went there, which is to buy more wine.
What in the world has caused that inflation? I mean, that's unheard of.
Hotel bills have actually gone up since COVID, not gone down, because everybody's looking to recover some of their lost income from those years to pay down their debt that they incurred, keeping their properties from being lost to the banks. But also food costs. Restaurants are now charging 3% when you use your credit card. Tips are becoming mandatory at 20%, whether you have good service or not. So all of those factors, plus just inflation, has created this high price for Napa Valley. But we do have alternatives. For example, it's very easy to go to Santa Barbara, which I mentioned earlier, and just stay in downtown Santa Barbara and visit what they call the Funk Zone. And when you go to the Funk Zone, you can walk from winery to winery. You don't need a car. You can take the train from LA if you want, or you can drive in and park your car somewhere, and you can spend the whole day walking around. It's a day trip for people from Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, even San Francisco, without having to break the bank. You're able to walk, you're able to visit more wineries more quickly, and you get the whole version of a wine tour without leaving a downtown area. So that's one example of where you can go that's very reasonable to get to on a one-day wine tour basis. Of course, you'll never hear me say drink and drive, so please find a designated driver. Another place you can go, which does require air travel and a hotel stay, but where the air travel's not that expensive and where hotel bills are under $200 a night, is Walla Walla, Washington, which will be next year's home of what's known the Hospice de Rhone, which is a big event that happens every 2 years in the United States. Walla Walla has created an entire downtown area of nothing but tasting rooms. But what makes Walla Walla so unique is within 5 to 10 minutes of that downtown area, you can drive to 4 or 5 other wine regional areas where you can literally go 100, 200 yards and be at another winery from a car. So places like Walla Walla, Santa Barbara, even Paso Robles, California, all present great opportunities because of the compactness and the lower price of hotel stays and the ease of wandering around the tasting rooms in the case of Santa Barbara, as well as in Walla Walla. You can also go up into the Santa Ynez Valley and just stop in Los Olivos. The little town of Los Olivos has a bunch of wineries. The Marjoram tasting room that just went in, the Cayena tasting room, Andrew Murray, Larner, Stoltman. These are all Schaefer, which is not Schaefer, but Tercero, which is owned by my friend Larry Schaefer. These are all literally feet apart from one another, not miles, not hours, not driving. You can literally just walk down the street and hit half a dozen wineries within a few hours, and you'll get to meet the winemakers often, and you'll get to learn, and you'll get to buy wines you can never buy anywhere else. So with the idea of how do you do a wine tour on a budget, it can be done. You just have to think about it.
Okay, Andy, and as we wind up this segment, maybe any tips like time of year to go, or any tips that maybe might help somebody who's trying to plan what they're going to do next?
That's a very good question, Andy. I would always avoid the harvest time of the year. And the reason is that's all hands on deck. The question is, when is harvest? And you never know. That's a Mother Nature decision of when that's going to happen. But I would tend to avoid the months of September and early October if you want to have the best experience where you're going to be able to interact with the winemaker and the assistant winemaker and the winemaker staff. Ideally, the winter months are very good because the grapes aren't growing and everybody's usually just available, or they're doing wine dinners around the country. But I always say the earlier part of the year, January through July, great times to go to wine country.
Beautiful. Well, Andy, thanks so much. That's really great information.
My pleasure, Andy.
In upcoming shows, travel expert Andy Edmondson has tips on how to travel light and travel right. After that, how to find the best places to eat well and have great wines and cocktails. And now it's time for Mimi in the kitchen. Let's find out what she's working on.
I'm making some zucchini, spinach, organic zucchini, organic spinach, some onions. I'm sauteing the onions in some olive oil, some garlic, and then I'm gonna throw in some cannellini beans and some cherry tomatoes, and it's gonna be so delicious. So we can eat it with the chicken.
So horoscopes are really interesting. In our weekly supermarket tabloid, we have a plethora of celebrity birthdays that are coming up in September. And one of my favorites is Keanu Reeves. And I really love his movies, and I hear really good things about him. And I believe his birthday is on September 2nd. And Virgo is actually August 23rd to September 23rd. And Virgos are generally really big thinkers, and they have an abundance of ideas. They're very introspective. And travel is basically beckoning Virgos this month.
Well, now the National Examiner, has a segment also on Steve Martin, who I've always liked. He was born in 1945 in Texas. Now, he gained popularity in the 1970s as a stand-up comedian, and later he transitioned into acting. And he has appeared on a lot of different films, including The Jerk, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Father of the Bride. He's also an accomplished banjo player and has released several albums showcasing his musical talent. Steve Martin isn't the only one still strumming away. There is another segment of superstars still rocking it in the 80s. Frankie Valli's 89 and Paul McCartney 81, Mick Jagger at 80 and Brian Wilson at 80. Keep it up and keep on rocking, you guys. Well, folks, that is our show. And for this week, I want to thank you for supporting it. And if you liked it or you learned something new, I want to tell you the 3 ways you can support the show and keep the Let's Talk Variety Show going on.
Number 1, get yourself subscribed, and we have interesting guests every week who come on and teach something or have something interesting to say. And the more you like it or you hit the little bell, the more you'll see those guests.
Yeah, that's always great. And number 2 is really the ultimate way to support the Let's Talk Variety Show. And it really takes just less than a minute. You simply have to write something short and sweet like, I love the show, it has changed your life, or something you learned from it. And the more reviews means the higher we rank on all those algorithms, which means bigger guests. So just take a minute to leave a review.
And number 3, share the show with your friends. Hit the share button. We live stream on Tuesday. And thank you so much for supporting the Let's Talk Variety Show about productivity, positivity, happiness, and inspiration. See you next time. Bye.
So long.